No one appears to be watching yet, but that's okay because they'll catch it on the replay. It's another Thursday. It's the Mattriarchy. I am joined today by my guest host, Nick Raven Mueller.
Yo.
And Brandon Hollingsworth of Brainy Pixel is your Twitter ID, yeah?
Yeah, that's the company that I'm with, absolutely. So
okay, that's the company as well. That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Now, oftentimes...
And Nick is wearing a unique outfit here this evening. He looks like a shadowy orb. So, hello, Nick, the shadowy orb.
I'm in the abyss. Yeah, my kids are currently being put to bed, and I might have a few intruders break in on me. So,
Gotcha. No problem.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Evie in the chat says she's the first, and does she win? Evie always wins. So
you win a shout out, Evie.
Yeah, she's and Ichthus is here as well. Thanks for showing up, guys. I'm starting late, so for any of you guys who were annoyed about it, sorry, but that's just the way it is working today, man. Oh my goodness. So
you can send all complaints to wereallydon'tcare.com, and we'll be sure to get all those complaints and take care of them.
They go directly to Bill Gates. That's actually
we do read them, but we do laugh at them as we read them. So
yes, absolutely.
You guys are official Mats. I want you on every week.
I am here. I will be here. Let me know.
Oh my goodness. So like today, I was running a little late getting back into town for the regulars, that I travel. I work on the road on Thursdays. And so I usually get in a half an hour before the show starts, and it's a scramble to get here. And today that did not happen. I was 15 minutes before the show starts, and I'm racing across town. It's a whole mess. And then Brandon is the first one in the green room, and my computer locks hard. It's not acting right. I decided, I'm going to restart it. And it took a full 20 minutes to restart.
It did, yeah. I watched almost all of my pilot episode of Cubekins. We were putting in music, and I got to watch almost the whole thing. So nearly 20 minutes, because this is a 22-minute episode. So
that's amazing.
And that's a secret, by the way, listeners out there, is make every minute count. If you're a freelancer or you want to make it in the creative space, make every minute count. When you're waiting on something, do something else. So a little free tip for you.
This is true.
That actually
true. That holds me up a lot. I tend to spend those minutes between things arguing with people, and that's not very productive. It sharpens my wit, but it dulls my productivity.
I thought you were marketing during that time.
Oh, am I selling rational arguments for independence? Is that what I'm trying to sell?
Sure, why not?
Yeah,
we need that right now.
There's no market in that. That's the problem. Nobody wants to. Just ask Bull Whittle. There's not money in that.
Very true. Very true. Well, I don't know. It depends on who you're talking to. But if you're working for my company, Reese, you could bill that under marketing.
Oh man. Anyway. Oh hey, this is actually a fun topic. Totally unrelated. We'll get to the real meat stuff here, but I don't understand the reaction of people on Twitter going crazy on a 14-foot gator caught on camera. That's because Ichthus, most places in America, most places in the world don't have gators.
Right.
So it's a novelty for us. I know Matt Krotz was talking the other day that alligator just like walked across his lawn or something down there, and I'm just like, we have deer. We have occasional bison. I've nearly hit a cougar on the highway.
Oh wow!
Right? Yeah. Well, I live in West Nebraska, and we were talking about this on the show a couple weeks ago. I live up in Scotts Bluff, and it's right between the Rocky Mountains and the Black Hills. And cougars are migratory. People don't know that.
Yeah, they have a huge range.
Oh yeah, they will. And so, if you drive across in the barrens at night, good chance you'll see them on the side of the road or whatever, and I've nearly hit one in a car. It's terrifying because they roar at you.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, those are fierce creatures. I got a great story about those, but I want to comment on Ichthus. I think people seeing a 14-foot gator on camera in Naples is kind of like when you go out to LA and there's a thunderstorm. People really don't know what to do. They're like, there are clouds in the sky and there's rain falling from the heavens, liquid. What is it? What is this light coming from the sky? I mean, seriously, the first time I ever went to LA, I flew out there and I got off the plane. It was in the afternoon, and I'm from the South, right? I live in Alabama, and in the summer, I mean, it's like clockwork. In the afternoon, you're going to have a thunderstorm.
Okay.
And so I just assumed it was just a thunderstorm, in LA. And so I just, go about my business and whatnot. And literally it's on the news when I get to my hotel room. They're like, thunderstorm in LA. It's like lightning watch 2020. What are we going to do? See, it was crazy.
That's all
those people driving a snowstorm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. Actually, and that's a whole thing. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I live in Scottsbluff. We're about 3.5 hours from Denver, right? And I lived in Denver for a little while, just as the Californication started happening 20 years ago is when I lived there. And so it was terrifying because I had moved from Nebraska to Colorado, and I lived down there for about 9 months. And then I got the hell out. And I was a child when I moved. I mean, I was 18, and I took the first opportunity I had to leave because Colorado is horrible. No, I take that back. Denver is horrible, but Denver's like the rotten apple in the barrel. Right. So like the entire state is like tainted because Denver exists there.
Yeah.
Denver has always, this is a little propaganda for you, Denver has always been awful. Denver has been so awful that the reason that the states around Colorado are shaped the way they are was so that we could intentionally disassociate ourselves from Colorado.
Tell us how you really feel, Matt.
That's historical truth, right? So
we want to be as far away as possible.
It's historical truth. When the states were getting their sizes, Colorado was a boom town because of the mining and everything, and so Denver was a boom town. So they were trying to get statehood, right? But Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, and I believe Nevada and Utah as well were like, because the original petition that Colorado put in, there weren't enough people here yet. But the original petition that they put in would make Colorado like twice as big all around it. Just this huge, massive area, and would include most of the Nebraska Panhandle, half of Wyoming, everything else. Everybody was so like, no, those crooks and thieves and whores and miners are not part of us. That every one of the states rushed their statehood along. Wyoming was so intent on not being Colorado, they gave everyone the franchise. Women, Indians, everyone. They're the equality state to keep Colorado away.
Oh man.
So I can't remember how I got off on that, but I remember. I was talking about weather. So
yes.
Of course up here it
does. As you do.
Yeah. Up here it doesn't snow a ton, but when it snows, and so everybody growing up, I mean, if you're from Nebraska, West Nebraska, if you're from Wyoming, if you're from Western Kansas, you know how to drive in snow, you know how to drive on ice. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. But when I was living down in Colorado, like the Californians had just started showing up in mass, and none of them could drive in snow. So it went from I was learning to drive in the big city too. So I went from somebody like when I was first living there, I was getting getting my groove about it, figuring it all out, learning how to drive in the city. And the minute I had it figured out, suddenly it was no longer safe to drive in the city anymore in the winter, because all of these jackasses who didn't know what ice were suddenly on the overpasses, spinning out, and oh my goodness, it was terrible. As these people who had never seen snowfall were suddenly trying to drive on iced over interstate overpasses. It was terrifying.
Unreal. I bet. Yeah.
Terrifying. Anyway, there you go. And that's my little. So yeah, I got the heck out of Denver as quick as I could.
Anti-Denver rant moment done. Check.
Yeah.
That's all.
Until the next one.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I'm not a big city person, right?
Yeah, me either. I hear you, brother.
So like,
no, none of us.
There's 30,000 people in my county, right? And that's too many.
Yeah, I agree. I say that all the time. I live in a little town in North Alabama. We got 2 stop signs, and we're proud of both of them. And in that town's too big for me. I want to move out in the woods. So I want to have a cabin out in the woods with some really good internet access, and I'm perfect. So
yeah, I hear that. So, but yeah, I like visiting cities. I appreciate what a city is.
As long as it stays over there.
Long as it stays over there. And if they would vacation far away from where I live too, even better.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm the complete opposite. I like living in the city, but if I could have like a vacation home out in the country area, I'd love like a dual mix where I could get like my city life sort of, because I'm sure like you guys, you get kind of stuck indoors for a while, and I like having people around me for a little bit, but I don't want to talk to them. That's the difference.
So Nicholas, it would be just as fine if you just like had people in a glass cage. You could just walk out and look at them, right? It's like
I mean, a zoo would be optimal, If you just put
people's zoo.
Part of the thing is cities are kind of like that because everyone pretends that no one else is there, and they have that intentional ignoring of everyone.
Yeah, and exactly.
So whenever I go to a city and I bring my rural Nebraska ways with me, right? And Scotts Bluff is technically a city, so it's got a lot of the city attitudes where we ignore people around us and stuff like that. But it's also, you still know your neighbors even if you don't like them. And we have a lot of convenience. We have like 7 internet providers in town. We can, we until the lockdown we had 24-hour everything.
Yeah, same here.
And now we have 24-hour nothing, which like sucks because I'm like, I don't like going to the store when everyone else is there.
Yeah, because that's how you get
sick. That's how you get sick. It's just like, honestly, 3 a.m. Well, probably 1 is the best time to go to Walmart.
Yeah, absolutely.
But didn't they shut down mostly so that they could do a better restocking the system because everyone was buying toilet paper for? Why was everyone buying toilet paper? That never got explained to me.
I think it was Twitter convincing you that it was going to be gone by promoting those kind of posts so that they can control what you do.
Oh, Twitter is such a trash pile.
That was a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I'm not going to walk it back.
I know, so everyone's buying toilet paper, and I was like, well, maybe I'm not going to get any.
Yeah. Well, I have in Scotts Bluff, we have like most of the conveniences of a city, and you can drive 5 minutes and be in the middle of the wastes. 10 minutes, but that I really like that. You're in the middle of like farmland, just outside of town. It's nice. So
and there's plenty of stuff out there that you can wipe with for free. So why buy? So
that's also true. As long as you bury it, you won't even offend your neighbors.
Absolutely.
Little Bunny Foo-Foo was white before you met him. I'll see myself out.
Oh man! Suddenly it's a Doug Garrett show. I love Doug, but he just loves the poop jokes.
So does Tim Lim.
That's also true. It's also true. I don't know. I don't understand what's up with that, but
we just became the Thunderdome, is what we became.
I believe we did. I believe we may have.
Retitled.
Who knows? He might even show up. Sometimes he shows up in the chat. So
yeah, it makes fun of everyone.
We're not here. We're talking about that a lot. So Brandon, let's rein it in. Actually, before we do that, speaking of Tim, look what just came. No, seriously, look what just came in the mail for me today.
You got yours?
I got mine. So I thought I'd unbox it quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to do this in the first 15 minutes, but the first 15 minutes was a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
So now we're in the beginning of the second hour. So
yeah, Brent, are you familiar with Tim and Mark's work?
No, I don't even know what that is. So
okay, so
explain it to me, Nicholas.
Yeah, so Tim and Mark work on a series called Common America and the. Oh man, I'm gonna draw a blank now, and I Black Ops.
It's a Black Ops USAGI.
Yeah, and they're kind of in an anime sort of style, but Tim is a devout Catholic, and Mark is I don't know if he believes in anything.
I think Mark's non-professing anything.
Yeah, but they're amazing. They do really high good quality content, and nice
card.
That's shiny.
Yeah, it is very shiny.
And that's Luigi.
Yeah, is it Luigi Terrell? Yeah.
Yeah, that's Luigi's art.
So I'm trying to cut off the shininess from the overhead light, but it's not working.
I just think it's a high gloss print. Looks really nice. Looks
It is super high gloss, and it's got two of Tim's characters. It's got Common America, who's a superhero, and then there is Penelope.
Penelope, yeah,
and she's the handler for the little rabbit special forces guy, USAGI, and then there is Brian Ball's Regina Rogowski, and Doug Ernst's Father Ritter
from Soul Finder.
Yeah, from Soul Finder.
And that's a good book too.
Oh, and dude, it's a patch.
The Waifu Association.
Waifu Association.
I'm gonna try to get in on that thing. That's a good association to be in.
So is this Reese? Is this like a Kickstarter thing that you got?
Well, yeah, it was on Kickstarter and on Indiegogo. I think I got the Kickstarter edition.
The Indiegogo comes out next week, I think.
Yeah,
shiny,
super rainbowy.
Yeah,
and their thing is that these two characters, which were the hero and the antagonist, the hero and the antagonist of the first volume, and they're just, I don't know how to describe it really. It's like superhero meets like good girl fiction.
Oh, gotcha.
And yeah, I don't know. It's really. It's got a little bit of slice of life flair to the stories, but it's also like solid superhero storytelling that's like really accessible.
Cool.
And it's pretty much an all ages kind of a thing too. So
awesome.
And Mark's a really good writer, so he's able to
of the boob window. And that's the one thing that might keep it out of an all ages category are the proliferation of boob windows.
I always assumed they did that though for the market value to grab a bunch of attention outside of the view because this is comics after all. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
goodness,
all women have boobs. Let's not deny this. But
what
are you assuming, Matt? What? Are you assuming?
Oh, we're not going there, Nicholas. Don't even start. I will log off right now.
Well, don't do that. I haven't got started my interview yet.
I'll log off before we do that.
It's like, I'm sorry, guys. I have to. I'm going to give myself a timeout. Like,
mute.
Nick's gone.
I'll put myself on mute.
So the print quality looks really, really good, though.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Yeah, it's API Print Solutions, the same company that does it's like Jostin's Print House.
Okay.
Jostin Yearbook people.
Okay.
And they also print Doug TenNaples books and the Soul Finder book.
Do they do that on demand, or you got to have a big print run, or how does that work?
It's a big print run.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how big, but it's
probably 5,000 units. Probably 5,000.
Yeah. Well, and this last Kickstarter for them, I think they had 4,000 to 5,000 backers on it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was it must have been a little bit more around that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been weird. There's been a big. I've got some history trying to get comics and books printed like that, and this was even before the days of print on demand. But most of the big houses won't touch anything that's smaller than 10, 15,000 units. But over the past few years, with the advent of a lot of print on demand, shops cropping up, and a lot of the medium and smaller size houses are going to more, catering to smaller print runs and things like that. But even they have minimums. So usually it's about 5,000. That's about, for a medium house, they won't touch anything that under 5,000.
So, but yeah, so I'm pretty stoked. I already read it. I read the digital they sent out last week.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist.
Couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I had to read it very quickly.
I did, and it's adorable. I love it.
Cool.
But speaking of quality content, I've gotten to actually read some of Brandon's stuff here, and I would say he's got some pretty top notch stuff underneath his belt too.
So here's the honest and embarrassing truth, Brandon.
Yes.
You sent me all that prep stuff. I did not get a chance to look at any of it. And so I am a babe in the wilderness.
That is not a problem, Reese.
Tell me your whole thing, man. What is your story?
Oh, my whole thing, man. Well, Nicholas can tell you that's a long tale. So
that's good. It's very good.
So you want me to talk about comics? You want me to talk about Brainy Pixel and animation? You want me to talk about being an author? What is it you want me to talk about? Because I can talk about lots of stuff. So whatever.
Well, let's talk about the animation piece to start with, and then we'll talk about comics.
All right, sounds good. So Brainy Pixel Productions is my business partner and I. We have the animation and production company, and we've actually been around over a decade. But we started out, actually, the company was really formed around a YouTube channel that did really well. And this was in the very early days of YouTube. So Michael, he and I knew each other before we started a company together. We had worked at another animation studio together. He as the animation lead, the technical lead, and was supervising a whole group, 12 animators. And then I was a freelance writer. I was just helping out on scripts. And so we got to know each other there. We stayed in contact. He called me a couple of years after that project wrapped up. And he said, "Hey, Brandon, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I got about 1 million irons in the fire as usual. What do you need?" And he said, "Well, I've got this. Have you ever heard of this thing called YouTube?" And it was in the very early days of YouTube. And he said, "I've got this channel. And it's really blowing up. I've got nearly 1 million subscribers, and I really need some help managing the channel." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll help you out." So we started a little business and partnered up together. And so initially I was just doing that. I was kind of helping with marketing, and I was doing, all the keywording and all of the descriptions for all the videos. And he was producing all the videos. It was called the How to Draw and Paint channel. And it was just this little YouTube channel where he would teach kids how to draw and how to paint, because we both have a passion for teaching. And so it did really well. Until YouTube changed things and started, basically smacking their creators around, and we made a fair amount of money, and it did really well. And so we said, "Hey, let's do something together. You kind of have the How to Draw and Paint. It's your thing, Michael, and I'm helping. That's cool, but let's create something together." And so we got together, put our heads together, and we want to do something fast and something that was fairly easy. And so we created a little children's show called Pick Train, take a picture on a train. So it's an early education. It's an early education program. It teaches kids their colors, their numbers. It's like 1 to 3 years old. So it's like all the basics, like Sesame Street. And it's a very little short show. And we put it up on YouTube, and it did really well and caught the eye of somebody at TBN, or the Trinity Broadcasting Network, which is the largest Christian network on the planet. And they licensed it and are still licensing it to this day. So they run it as interstitials, because the shows are really short. They're very, very short. They're very repetitive, on purpose, because you're trying to teach kids things. And they run them actually in between shows, kind of like a little filler or a little commercial,
like they used to with picture pages when I was young.
Yeah, or Schoolhouse Rock. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Less story, more just teaching. Interesting side note, we've actually found that Pick Train, in terms of our demographic, does really well for really young kids, but it also does well for English as a second language people, because the format is that it shows you a picture and then tells you the word. And so it makes it really easy then to learn English, So anyway, so that was kind of an interesting thing. So Pick Train did well. We sold that to TBN. Other stations started licensing it. And we said, well, this is a nice model. Let's try this again. So we began to try and come up with shows and ideas for shows. And so now we are working on several shows. One of them is a top secret 3D animated feature film project, which has gotten a lot of interest in both in the Christian film space and actually in Hollywood. And so that one's all under tight wraps, but it's under development right now. And then we wanted to have something shorter and a little bit more simple, with more story behind it, that we could show and possibly put out and maybe make some money on and get a series produced. And so we've developed this little show called Cubekins, and it's kind of, the way we pitch it is, it's VeggieTales set in Mayberry. It's a little cute, colorful characters. It's centered around a family, and we're teaching Christian values. So we're talking about prayer, we're talking about scripture, and we're reading the Bible, and we're going to church, and we're having fun at it. It's not drudgery. But all of our problems in Cubekins are kind of everyday problems, like you might encounter like in Andy Griffith, right? It's like, somebody's pie is missing, or, somebody, spilled the milk, and whose fault is it, right? So it's very, very simple stuff, but we're trying to infuse a whole lot of story and a whole lot of feeling into it. And so far it's doing really well. All the stuff that we're showing people, they're really, really interested in it. And this Sunday, we're actually showing it to about 30 kids. The first time it's been seen outside of Brainy Pixel. So it's a super secret, private screening. And so we're going to see how it does to our target audience on Sunday. And so we're really excited about that. And if that does well, then we're going to be starting a film festival run starting December 2nd. So
cool.
And that's just one show. We've got several shows in work. So if you want me to talk about those, I can talk about those too. So
wow.
Yeah, you should talk about Divine Nine next. I think people will really like that one.
All right. So what we've tried to do with Brainy Pixel is, because when you start pitching to people, right, you invariably you're going to pitch to someone and they're going to say, oh yeah, Cubekins sounds great, but kid stuff is not my ball of wax. So what else do you got? So what we wanted to do as a studio is really have a portfolio of projects that we could come in and pitch to pretty much any age range, any demographic, from essentially 1 year old to about college age or young adults. So we've got Pick Train on the very, far end of one end of the scale. And then we have Cubekins that picks up right after that. And then after Cubekins, we've got another show called the Divine Nine. And the Divine Nine is, can I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
I can do here. All right, so let me pull that up right quick, and I'll show you guys some stuff while I rattle.
Have to okay it once it's okay, and I will.
All right. I'll just share my entire screen. That works.
Yeah. Evie says Divine Nine sounds like an anime already.
All right.
It's made for it.
Okay. So can you guys see my screen?
I can. Okay. I'm on it.
All right.
There we go. Okay.
All right. So I'm on the Brainy Pixel website here, brainypixel.com. If anybody's interested, you can go check us out. All this stuff's out there. I'm not showing you anything private or new. So this is the Divine Nine. So it's a 2D animated Christian kids series. We kind of pitch it as a Christian Ben 10 meets Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so I'll just kind of scroll through here. The whole show is basically built around two twins who were looking for their mom and dad, who were kind of taken from them in this kind of supernatural incident. And they're trying to find their mom and dad, but along the way, they begin uncovering these strange mysteries that revolve around the Divine Nine. And that's these 9 entities, or maybe spirits, if you will, that they encounter that are tied back to some early foundational stuff in church history. And I won't reveal too much about what those creatures are, because that's what the show is all about. But it is definitely, it's very anime-esque. The kind of art style that we're going with is kind of a Ben 10-esque kind of art style. And so we've got these 9 characters, obviously, that we've done a ton of design on, a ton of work. And the pitch for this thing is complete. We've got a whole pitch ready to go. We've got a budget ready to go to present to folks. And for all of our shows, we're looking, for production partners or investors. So people that are looking to come and, drop a sizable amount of money in to make the show a reality, to make it something that is a real thing. But we are still self-funding a lot of these projects currently. So like, for instance, right now, I'm working with an artist and we are developing an animatic for the intro for this show. So it's a short, about 1.5 minute animatic that we're developing to kind of get you interested and to show you what the show is going to be a little bit about. So ton of fun, having a blast working on this particular show. And some of these designs for some of these creatures here actually harken back to an earlier project that I had way back in the day. I've co-opted some old monster designs and brought them back into play with this particular project. And I can talk about that project later as well.
Cool.
So we got Cubekins and Divine Nine. We got then Fourth World 4. So Fourth World 4 is our kind of our action-packed sci-fi series. It is what we call a faith broad market, for a faith broad market. And the faith broad market is simply just people who are not antagonistic to believing in something bigger than themselves. So they might not necessarily be, a hardline Christian. They may be they may be a different religion, but they believe in a higher power. They believe in something bigger than themselves. And so the Fourth World Four, because it deals with aliens, and it's tough to doctrinally deal with aliens if you want to be strict to the Bible, because Jesus came and died for people, not for aliens out in space. So you kind of run into some eschatological arguments that are hard to kind of get around. So we decided, hey, let's take the easy road with this particular show, and we're just going to have a show that has great moral values and messages, but all those are ultimately going to be based on Scripture. So we're not necessarily going to talk about God or Jesus or Scripture in this show.
We kind of talked about the exact opposite problem with that in Doug TenNaples' Black Cherry last week.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's got aliens and Catholicism. It's quite fascinating.
Wow.
Oh yeah, he dove right into the question. It's amazing. It's an amazing work.
Yeah, and it is. It's a really tricky problem, and it's one that, as a show creator, you have to be very, very careful when you're working with those concepts, because you can alienate a large portion of your audience, depending on where you land in terms of where you're, where you're pitching your theology, so to speak.
Definitely. I think the idea of the faith broad idea is really intriguing to me as a comic guy, right? As a long-term comic fan, because that was the assumption of like DC and Marvel for years and years.
Absolutely.
Right.
Sure was.
I mean, especially like DC Comics from like the 70s through the first part of the 2000s, right? Of the aughts. Was, their universe was a Judeo-Christian universe that, had a whole bunch of other stuff tacked onto it.
Yeah.
And like they didn't talk about it, but Jesus was absolutely God. And that was like the assumption in the universe. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of look at that as a market force, and not to seem what's the word, like callous about that. But I mean that's a definite aspect to it.
Yeah, I mean the Christian entertainment industry, they segment the market into those areas. Those are not terms we came up with. Those are like known terms inside that Christian entertainment industry. And you really have to, when you go in to pitch somebody, you have to know who you're pitching to. You have to know who your show is targeted for. And so you've got to think about all those things ahead of time, and if you don't, you get asked to leave the pitch room pretty quickly, or people they might not ask you to leave, but they're going to say, okay, these guys really don't know what they're talking about.
So Brandon, then for people that are listening here, you being in that sort of position, how do you go? So before you go and pitch something, how do you kind of go and research? Like, how do you kind of find out that information before you go in there and present that? Like, how do you avoid those pitfalls?
Oh yeah, you might not know that. That's a great question, Nicholas. You might not know that. I mean, obviously some of these organizations are well known, if you're talking about a Right Now Media or a Minnow TV, or, if you're talking about a Vision Video or somebody like that. These are big, well-known organizations. They've got websites. They will put their kind of statement of faith on their websites. And so you can kind of go and get a feel for maybe what the organization is like. But unless you know the people who are in the room, you don't know what their personal standing is, right? So, for instance, I'll give you a little story. We were at a Christian Worldview Film Festival a couple of years ago, and we were just beginning to talk about our film project. And we met with a guy that if I threw his name out, everybody listening would probably know it. I mean, he's a big name, not just in the Christian space, but in podcasts and in communications everywhere, like media. And we were talking to him about our film, and the first question he asked us is, "Where are the humans?" And we hadn't really thought about that question. And so we said, well, there aren't any humans right now. There might be some later. And he goes, well, that causes some problems for me, because then I have some now issues with what the Bible says about Revelation. So I'm out. It's kind of like Shark Tank. It's like, okay, I'm done. And we found out later, if we would just said, oh, in this universe there are no humans, he would have been in. So there went that opportunity.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but
that's harsh. That sucks.
Well, I mean, I guess it could be harsh, but
Well, no, I mean, it's just like in terms of not like I'm not trying to cast aspersions there. I'm just saying, like, man, like when you like that's a real small thing, and to just be like if to find out later that was the thing that killed the pitch. It's just
Right.
like, well, what?
And he left the door open so we can go back and talk to him again.
And that's cool. It just
Yeah.
like, man, to find out like that was the thing. Well, why didn't you just say so?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, some of these things to some of these folks, it's very important, that they line up with Scripture, and we're that way as well at Brainy Pixel. We don't ever want to, go against what Scripture says, or we don't want to undermine what Scripture says, or glorify anything outside of God and what He says about Himself. But we feel that there is some play in terms of things like aliens, right, where we can maybe not have a universe that talks about necessarily the gospel, but we can have message that absolutely resonate with the gospel, or that underscore the gospel, that are just solid, moral messages that anybody can agree with, So just wanted to show you the picture here. This kind of also shows you a little bit of development with this particular product or this project. So the models up here, this is intended to be a 3D show. So you see the models here for the captain, our XO, and the doc and the engineer. These were actually just 3D models that we purchased, or that we purchased and then modified. That we could, they will allow you to do that. And we did it solely for purposes of the pitch. And it was a fair amount of work because obviously, we set these guys up, we put them in all these. All these 3D sets, we built all this stuff in 3D. So this is not all 2D stuff. This is all 3D. So we spent a lot of time working with these 3D assets, but it was really just to get the point across about what the show was going to kind of look and feel like. What we actually intend the characters to look like are these guys here. This is actually our concept art for the final design for these 4 main characters. So you can see it's kind of in the neighborhood, but it's slightly different. And we did that for marketing purposes, number one. And then also because we want to own all the design assets. So if we ever get an opportunity to move into toys or franchise or, merch or things like that, we can do whatever we want to with the models that we've designed. So kind of a little subtle point out there for anybody who's thinking about jumping into a space like this. If you own your own designs from beginning to end, it's going to go a lot better for you later on. So
let me back up just a little bit because I want to ask some questions before I forget about them.
Yeah.
So, when you guys were talking about the whole Brainy Pixel, the origin of the company, right? It started on YouTube.
Yes.
Right. And where did you guys do as far as, because starting a company is a risky endeavor.
Right. Sure.
What did you guys do for startup capital, or did you guys just make it in your spare time and turn it into? How'd you guys go about that?
Oh
yeah, that's a great question. Well, Michael started that YouTube channel, the How to Draw and Paint, just because he had a passion for teaching kids. And really YouTube was brand new at that point. Literally, Michael was probably one of the first 1,000 people on YouTube, right, to create an account. It was very, very early on. And so he just happened to hit on a good formula, and the company made a lot of initial cash from YouTube advertising in those early days, like when those people were making those great big checks every month, thousands of dollars a month, as opposed to tens of dollars a month as we make now. And so that was a lot of that early seed cash that we were able to utilize. But also from the very early inception of Brainy Pixel, it's not just been about our products and our projects. We also offer lots of services. So, we've done lots of commercial work as well. So, work for different companies who want a little short animation, or maybe they want an explainer video. We've done concept design for people who think they have a story that they want to develop into a book or a comic or, an animation or something like that. So there are lots of services that we provide as well that help to kind of supplement the company and help keep us going. So it's not all fun work. Some is work that's fun for other people. It's not all passion work, I guess, is the way to put that.
And also, just to interrupt also for a second.
Sure.
Larry, Niobe Comics in the chat. I can't post to Facebook because of the interface. So I will just tell you, this is Brandon Hollingsworth from Brainy Pixel.
It is.
So there's your answer to your question. Okay.
Thank you. I was wondering who I was. That's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. LP's an excellent guy. He's also a horrid smartass. So
yeah, very sarcastic.
Terrible.
Funny sarcastic.
It's
awesome.
It's genuine and sincere, but also hilarious.
Oh, he and I will get along just fine. That'll be great. And so the Fourth World 4 is kind of that, video game age. That's who we're kind of targeting there. So it's essentially going to be ages 6 to 14 or so, right around that, maybe 6 to 13. So that kind of picks up where Divine Nine kind of leaves off in terms of that, handing them off to the next show. And then after 14 and up, we move into Tenet's Tales, which is what Nicholas has been waiting for. And this is
yes.
Tenet's Tales is, excuse me, hold a sec. Sorry about that. Everybody there?
Oh yeah.
So Tenet's Tales is really this is my personal passion project. This is a project that I have been personally working on and building the world for at least 15 years. And I mean, I have stuff published for Tenet that's 15 years old. So this has been a project that is very near and dear to my heart. And right now, this is currently pitched as a comic, right? So it's essentially a Christian Hellboy meets X-Files with a little Doctor Strange and Dresden Files mixed in for good measure. And I've got several novellas that are published in this world. I would love for this to move into an animation. We're talking about that currently. Probably a 2D animated show if we do that. But I currently have a short comic. It's a little ash can, really. It's only about 8 pages, called Troublemaker. And so it's here on the screen. And Tenet is essentially a fallen angel. And in my universe that Tenet inhabits, it's called the Weird War universe, which is essentially just the battle of good versus evil. All of the angels that decided to side with Lucifer when he rebelled in heaven, they still maintain their free will after the fall. Mm-hmm. Obviously, to choose one thing over another, you have free will. That's kind of the definition of it. And they retain that quality after their fall. And some of them have decided that they made a bad choice. Some of them decided that this wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And they basically told Lucifer to take a hike, and they're going to go do their own things. And so what that's led me to do is create this entire universe that is filled with different supernatural entities that are essentially angels or fallen angels of all different stripes, flavors, and colors. Meaning that we might have some that are evil that side with Lucifer and they want to do mankind harm. They want to rail against the forces of heaven. But we might also have fallen angels who've decided they want to do good and they want to help mankind. Mm-hmm. And Tenet, our main character, is one of those guys. We may also have fallen angels who've decided they don't want any part in the war, and so they become neutral. So they've retreated to nature. And, so this then, if you begin at the beginning and move forward to now, you now have a plausible explanation, in my mind, within the Christian mythos, within the Christian scriptures, of explaining pretty much any kind of supernatural creature that's out there, because they're all basically good, evil, or neutral. And so now I can explain things like chimeras, and I can explain things like Bigfoot, and I can explain things like, deities, right? Those are just fallen who decided they've gotten a big head. So there's a lot of room now I can explore and play within this Tenet Tales universe. And so far, I'm having a blast. So
yeah, that actually is very much what we're trying to do with our Ideal Comics universe that I'm one of the co-creators on.
Cool.
Not exactly the same, and of course your art's much better than anything that I've created. But the idea that new Evie in the chat says fallen angels currently reside in Switzerland, the neutral one.
Of course they do. That's where they all hang out.
Yeah.
And no relation to the Nolan film. Like I said, I've been working with Tenet for about 15 years, so he stole my name. I didn't steal his name. So
yeah, can you steal a name? That's what I can
say. You really can't. You really can't.
No,
that's why I don't worry about it. However, my lawyers, I'm joking.
but no, we have in our Ideal Comics universe, we have the idea that the demons retained their free will after the fall, and we also have this idea that we kind of stole the idea from the Book of Enoch, that they're able to reproduce. So we've got third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and seventh generations of demonic beings that some of them are some of them, they're all demonic, but some of them are like, they have their life, and what does that mean?
And that's not just out of the Book of Enoch as well, which I'm familiar with the Book of Enoch. It's actually from the Old Testament. I mean, you have the Nephilim, right? And so absolutely, I've got a whole organization in my Weird War universe. It's called the Brotherhood of Belial, which Belial is also from the Old Testament. It's, and they're all about doing, now they've moved into, early on they were about interbreeding programs, like trying to breed humans with fallen or neutrals in order to gain certain supernatural abilities. But now they're getting into gene splicing, into genetic manipulation. So they're combining science and mysticism. And so it really is, the whole series begins to feel really a whole lot like a Dresden Files kind of meets Hellboy. But it's all based on scripture, and it all agrees with scripture, and I'm super excited about it. So
yeah, that's something that I've really tried doing, taking a couple things. And the reason I reference Enoch specifically is because it's more explicit. And Genesis 6 is left very open to interpretation.
Sure is.
And I very much believe that that's intentional. I think it's one of those things where scripture must remain silent, we must as well, from a doctrinal
the secret things that are known only to God,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because like whichever way you interpret that, it doesn't change God's ultimate plan from a doctrinal perspective. And so but I think it gives us a lot of room in fiction to play with.
Yeah, I agree. And I love playing in that gray space. I call it in between the lines of scripture, kind of. That's where I love playing, and kind of, it's a real fine balance, and you have to make sure you're not glorifying yourself or glorifying evil or glorifying sin. And that's one of the things about Tennis Tale is the light is always going to win. The good guys are always going to win in the end. It might be really, really dark and really, really scary before we get there, but we're going to win in the end. And it's going to be from the power of God, and it's going to point us to the gospel. So. And
one of the stories I'm working on right now, all the pencils are done. The inker's working on it. I'm probably going to be coloring the first page tonight for the flat colors. Is a story called I've Been to Hell, and it takes place within our universe, and it's about a bunch of kids from the supervillain high school that go to one of their buddies' grandfather's house in hell.
Cool.
Because he's a half demon, and his grandfather is one of the original fallen, and he lives in a false hell. So that's the joke that it's in. And so they go on this, it's a comic adventure in fake hell.
You really need to set it like during one of the, like a horrible family holiday, one of those where you feel like you're like, I can't get out of this room.
That's kind of the thing, is it's spring break. And so Demon Priest is the character's name, Kevin, and his friends Chad and Greg go with him because he's like, you got to come with me. It's going to be horrible. And so they're friends. They're going to go to support. And Grandpa doesn't want them there because he wants to disassociate from his human family, and he just wants peace and quiet. And it goes just bad from there.
Yeah, it goes bad fast, I bet.
Yeah, it's going to be great. The person doing the pencil art is Rolf Gordeau, who's most recently done some stuff on our webcomic Forces of Good and Evil. And then the ink artist is my son Taliesin, and he's got this like crazy good like anime style. And I tell you what, it's gonna be fun. I'm really, man, the first 6 pages are done, and it just looks dynamite. So
awesome.
I'm excited for it. But yeah, and
let me know. It sounds like we need to do a little collab.
Maybe.
So I think we're in the same headspace. So let's.
I've actually I'm working on a surprise for Nick down the road that I've hinted to him, but I don't know if he knows what it is.
Oh, I see. Excellent.
What are you guys talking about?
Because I'm looking forward for his story so much that I've got something in mind for him.
Oh yeah, I read two of his books today. As a matter of fact, I read 0 and 1, so they were awesome. I can't wait to read the next one. So Good job, Nick.
Thank you, guys. And I'm excited to possibly work with Brandon in the future here too, and throw something down with Matt here in the future too. I mean, there's a wealth of creativity going on right now that I don't think we've seen in a long time.
And I want to talk a little bit about that if I could, just for a minute. I mean, I was blessed and I was able to go full time with the Brainy Pixel back in April. So April Fool's Day, actually, I got to go full time. So,
well, hey, that's like
God's sense of humor
for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was perfect. It was totally God's sense of humor. So, but in the last 7 months or so, it has been amazing. I was not on any social media before this point. But that was one of the goals, obviously, for us as a company, is to kind of begin to establish that presence and build it and start figuring out, where our customers were. But I have encountered so many believers over the past 7 months. And time again, I hear the refrain, I just want to use my gifts for the kingdom. I just want to use my gifts for God. I just want to use my gifts to glorify Christ and to point to the gospel. And this is across all genres. This is not just comics. It's not just fiction. It's not just movies. Every single creative endeavor that you can do. I mean, I've talked to people who are knitting for Jesus, and they're like, I just want to knit for Jesus, right? And I really feel like God's moving. I really feel like there's something happening where, there's going to be this big kind of synergistic thing that happens where, instead of all of us working in our little private silos, where we're going to start working together, and it's going to be an amazing thing. And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I think one of the things that I want to do with my art, and I've talked to Nick about this, that I definitely want to, obviously I want to glorify God in everything I do. But I think one of the things I really want to do, especially with the Ideal Comics stories, is present a Christiano-normative worldview. Right, that traditional Western civilization worldview that's built on biblical truth, and so that as we're talking about these, these absolute truths and personal, individuality and all these other kind of stuff, we can point to, hey, we're made in God's image. That's why this works,
right?
So that we build these foundational ideas, and then we can talk about why do they make sense philosophically.
Sure.
Because I think we've so much of our society, we've lost that normative view of the world, and this disgusting. Forgive me for being so blunt with it, but this disgusting postmodernism that we live in, this absolute denial that truth can even exist, puts it at a disadvantage for saying, no, I know truth, and he's a Jewish dude that I talk to every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he was around before any of this stuff happened, and he spoke all this stuff into existence. And absolutely. The fact that we can't, that we can't all agree on things anymore, it's absolutely an attack of the enemy. I mean, he's the father of lies, and what's he going to attack? He's going to attack the truth, which, by the way, is what tenet means. So there's a little hint for you. Yeah, I won't go any further than that, but tenet he's the embodiment of the concept of truth in the Weird War universe. So.
If I could interject something real quick here, is one of the things that really impressed me with Brainy Pixel is the quality behind the work. Yes. So when we all talk about like intertwining Christian ideals into creative arts, I don't think we've seen good quality and since like the Renaissance, and that when like artists were being hired out to basically create wonderful pieces of art within that time frame. But I think we can all agree that most Christian media is maybe subpar compared to the counterculture that we're dealing with. But one of the things that I've seen with Brainy Pixel and the stuff that Brandon has been showing me is there's a depth of quality to it, that they're not just coming at it like we're going to push a Christian message. Like there's an art form to it. And I think a lot of people will look at it and it won't be corny or cheesy or cringeworthy. Like maybe sometimes we tend to step into that area. Everything he's shown me so far has a depth of just quality. The content is there. And I think that's where most people are going to gravitate towards, because they're not just going to be like it's got the Christian message behind it, and there's a marketplace for it. But I think it also has the material to back it up. It's got the content, the quality that it will stand on its own merit within that same measure as well. And that's what really made me gravitate towards it.
Well, thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that.
Well, first of all, I'd like to argue with you that I don't think that it's true. It's accurate to say that it's been since the Renaissance. It's
Oh yeah, well, I'm just throwing out a general census.
much more recent than that. It's all the way up until the 50s. And
okay, yeah, true.
Because here's the thing is all Western art and everything, it was super churchy up until pop culture embraced Dada.
Yeah.
Right? It was Picasso, it was Dada, it was those becoming avant-garde. And there was the argument between the classicists and the avant-garde. And when the avant-garde won the debate as far as being intelligent, then all that was left was like nobody was learning those skills anymore. And like if you go check out even go one of my this is a pitch for something totally unrelated, but if you go look at James Lilacs website, right? Lileks, James Lilacs. It's like a shrine to mid-century like kitsch, but like the level of oil painting and stupid old ads that are terrible is superb. But like that stopped being fine art at that time, right? When popular art and ad art and fine art diverged, like that was also that was conjuncted at the same time with the denigration of the artistic mindset and the leaving classical values behind and all this other kind of stuff that happened at the same time. And so like church art was trying to keep up with these new art forms and nobody was spending money on it. And then you had churches hiring Ed Wood to make pictures for them.
Yeah, and I think ironically about that same time is when we threw in the towel on the scientific front as well. You know,
exactly.
it seems like there's something that happened in that decade where we just kind of threw up our hands and really gave up, because I mean, before that, art and science and I mean, every aspect, it was all Judeo-Christian based, and it was driven by that ethos, and we just kind of lost the ball for some reason during that decade.
And then the other thing too, and part of my thing, my artistic drive, right? I take a lot of because you talk about cheesy Christian movies, which is true. I can't argue with that.
Absolutely.
But I also have to say the early Kendrick's Brothers pictures that are raw and garage cut are better than the stuff they've made with more money. Right? Because they were bad, but I don't want to say they're less sincere now, but there's something about that garage band kind of feel to them. Right.
Well, it's the execution too.
Exactly. They didn't have the skill, and I think they still don't necessarily have the skill to be great filmmakers, but they had the skill to be decent underground filmmakers. Right. And so the money, instead of hiring the people to bring it in, they kept making them themselves. And they were trying to make big budget pictures with small budget talent. Right. If you're a punk band, don't try to play classical music.
Right.
And I kind of feel like, at least with my skill for writing or for drawing, I think I'm a better writer than I am an artist. But all of the stuff that we've produced visually, it's garage band level stuff, right? If you go through idealcomics.net, almost all of that stuff is garage band level stuff. We've been able to bring some better artists on, but most of the stuff you're going to have is that kind of sketchy style, because that's what we have. That's what we've had to work with. And I'm not ashamed of that, because that's where it is. But I'm not going to pretend that Forces of Good and Evil is like Jim Lee stuff. I won't write it as serious. I'm not going to write it as gritty as you would, because the art doesn't qualify for that kind of gritty.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is authenticity. Right?
Yeah,
I really think that's what you're talking about, in that there is something about when you're creating art and you love the art form, there is a measure of authenticity that comes across to the viewer or to the listener, to the consumer, whatever it is. The people can they can sense that authenticity, and whether we like it or not, you got guys and folks in the audience. I mean, if you're listening to music, the first thing you're listening for is good music. You're not listening for the message. The message comes after the beat catches you, or that cool bass riff gets you moving, or whatever that authentic expression of that art form is. And so For us at Brainy Pixel, I mean, our thing is we start with killer story, we layer on amazing visuals, and then we give all the glory to God. And so you got to start doing what you do best. And that's how God made us. He gifted us to be creative. You know, he gifted you, Reese, to be an artist and to be a writer. And if you don't do that first and foremost, right, and if you don't do that well, then yeah, nobody's going to pick up the book, right? Now, then you as a creator have to decide, who am I going to glorify, right? The words that I'm putting on the page, the lines that I'm putting on the page, the message that I'm delivering, are they going to glorify God? Are they going to glorify the world? Are they going to glorify me? Are they going to glorify whatever? Fill in the blank. But if you do it well, people are going to be drawn to it. I mean, that's just
totally agree.
Long and short.
And I think a lot of it comes down to like from a writer and producers or editors perspective, where I sit with a lot of my stuff, is trying to find the right story for that right artist. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I've got more serious stories that I want to tell. But I know if my hand's at the pen, it's got to be something silly, because the best I can do is cartoons.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of artists that I went through, and really the number of temps where I paid money out to artists to draw this Troublemaker comic, and it just didn't work because the artist wasn't understanding where I was coming from. It didn't get Tenet, didn't really get the feel or the tone that I was trying to come across. But finally, with Mingo, I hit the jackpot. So,
and a similar issue too. I'm going to point to Nick over there. You look at like, because I've seen the stuff from before because Nick's story. I'll go and tell Nick's story here. Nick used to draw years ago and then set it aside and picked it back up again and kind of had to relearn stuff because he got out of the habit. His old stuff wouldn't tell the story he's telling today.
Right.
Yep. So learning those different kinds of skills up to the game enough where he could tell the story that Demon Hunter is. And you wouldn't have that without it. So I think it's one of those things that, he's lucky enough to be able to have the whole ball of wax to tell the story he wants to tell. I got to find a guy. Of course, for I've been to hell, I live with the guy.
Right.
He owes me.
I created him.
I had a part.
Yeah.
But he does owe me. He's been living rent free here for a long time.
Yeah. So draw ink.
I do have something that I'm working on for you. I just haven't shown it yet. I'm so backed up on things.
Are you talking about me, or are you talking about Reese?
I'm gonna leave that up in the air and let you decide.
That's awesome. I love it. From the chat, a couple questions from the chat before we move on, because I do have more questions. But Star says, Brandon, did you also research Jewish tradition?
Yes.
About Tenet? Yes,
absolutely. I don't know if I have it. I think my daughter's using it to press leaves right now. But I've got this. I've got this massive book on mythology. I'm a huge mythology nut. I'm a huge monster nut. Always have been. But yes, I have. So let me back up. So my personal search for truth took me through this long and sordid path. And before I finally came to faith in Christ, I had read the Bible several times. I'd read the Quran. I'd read the Book of Mormon. I had read the Bhagavad Gita. I had read many Hindu texts. I had read just about every treatise on world religion that you can get your hand on, and even tried my hand at writing my own statement of faith and creating my own religion before I finally found the truth, who is Jesus. So I'm pretty well versed in Jewish tradition and in Jewish mysticism and in Kabbalah and Kabbalism. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a comic script today that ties in with Divine Nine, that goes back to Solomon's later years when he began dabbling in mysticism and the whole Solomon's seal and when he was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. So absolutely, I pull from all those sources because all those sources are real. One of the things that just drives me nuts as a Christian is when other Christians bury their heads in the sand and pretend like that stuff doesn't exist. It's out there, right? And the worst thing we can do, in my opinion, as a Christian, is to ignore it or pretend that it doesn't exist.
Right.
We need to be able to provide a reasoned reply to those things, Paul would say, a reasoned response and a reason for the faith that is within us. And so you can't provide a reasoned response to something that you're ignorant about.
That's true.
So I don't endorse, getting involved into spirituality or dabbling in mysticism or, playing around with Ouija boards or things like that. However, I do encourage people, and I teach a college and career class at my church. I do encourage people to educate themselves. There's a difference between reading about particle physics and going out and trying it in your backyard. Two different things.
That right? Can be really dangerous too.
Well,
be right back, guys. Gotta go try it.
I don't think
dabbling around with with mysticism or dabbling around with dark arts or things like that. Those things.
I'm just going to say, I think it's an official statement of the Mattriarchy that we do not encourage building your own particle accelerator. I mean, you do you. It's a free country, but don't.
Yes, I agree.
And if I could interject in there for a minute, I think you're right on to something there. Your point about like dealing in with these, let's call it dark arts, the dark mysticism, witchcraft and that Ouija boards. Like every time me and my wife are watching, like let's say a classic Disney movie, and there's something with witchcraft or someone graves out a Ouija board, we kind of sit there and we almost start praying. Like we don't want that stuff to enter into our house. We don't want that to pass through, or like we could talk about the spiritual reality of stuff and whatever people say or believe in that area. But there's definitely, as Christians, we're taught to be on guard, to be, we fight against not the flesh and blood, but against spirits and principalities, and people that dabble in that stuff that are just intrigued by it, even teenagers, that scares me because that has profound effects on multiple areas.
Sure it does. Sure. And you have to watch the sorts of things you bring into your house.
Absolutely.
I probably don't have time tonight, but maybe on a future show, I can tell you guys about a story that happened to me and my wife that relates to that very thing, where she experienced some things as a result of some stuff that I had in the house. Didn't bother me at all. But it really disturbed her, and there was almost it's like a supernatural occurrence that happened with her, and so it was really pretty creepy. And so we took that stuff out of the house and prayed over the house, and I started praying over my wife, and it all went away. So it was pretty wild.
I think people sometimes forget or don't believe, right, that but I think even Christians forget that, like, we live a four-dimensional existence.
Absolutely.
Right. But we don't dwell in a four-dimensional existence.
Right.
We like whatever it is that creates the human mind transcends our four-dimensional universe.
Absolutely.
Right? Beyond that. And I think that people like don't think about that like, that our very being is transcendent.
Yeah.
We don't even think about what transcendence is. Which is one of the crazy times I get into arguments with atheists, and other skeptics too, that are just like, they'll argue that, how can you believe that, what you think is the truth? And I said, how can you believe that truth exists?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, there's no logical reason, if you're an atheist, to even assume that a concept like the truth would ever come about.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and the funniest statement, I was talking to Doug Tenaple about this last week. I find it hilarious, which is a total name drop. Go back and watch last week's show. It was great.
By the way.
Thank you. But seriously, like when somebody says, I don't believe in absolutes. I said, well, you're pretty confident about that absolute statement.
Yeah, I think you just stated an absolute. So
it's a little logical
we
joke.
We need to have a whole podcast just on apologetics. That would be a blast.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That would be phenomenal.
I've done several times in the show. I've done Christianity and comics as a thing, and I'm planning on doing like a beginning of December, kind of doing an Advent show.
Cool.
So if you want to come back on,
that would be awesome.
I've had a couple of people that have been like, I'm a Christian, I'd like to talk about Jesus.
Yeah. Sign me up. That'd be great.
So we'll do another. We'll plan on doing another one beginning of December. So
that sounds wonderful.
You Matt, if you do that and you have him on here, you need to have Brandon open up in prayer. This guy's sincerity for praying absolutely just stunned me when we sat down and we had a meeting together. And if you do, you got to have him open up in prayer. I mean, this guy's heart for the Lord is not something that a lot of people, I think, get to see. And the sincerity, especially, not to go off on a diatribe here, but just seeing a man pray and that sort of manliness, I think, is really missed nowadays. And so I'm putting that out there. No, I'm demanding it. I'm demanding it.
Thank you.
I won't come on.
That is a huge
I won't
problem.
promote anymore.
That is a huge problem with men today, but that's a whole nother show. So
That is another show.
That is a different show. Actually, that's a good theme for a show. Is what's wrong with men?
Oh yeah. I want to be on that show. Sign me up.
Other than original sin, but that's a whole different story.
Well, yeah,
there's so much you can talk about there.
You know.
Actually, and that's a show too. Is talking about the nature of original sin. We could get a Protestant, a Catholic, Orthodox guy on and just fight about it for hours.
Yeah. Sign me up. Sign me up. I'd love to be on that show. That sounds great. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, I think it's so important that people encourage other people to, if they can't participate, to at least listen to what civil discourse is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our society has lost the concept of civil discourse.
That's
true.
I
mean, I don't know, Reese. I'm thinking you're probably about as old as I am. So, I mean, we grew up, you know, learning that I can disagree with you and still respect you. You know, I can disagree with you and, oh, by the way, still love you. And,
and here's the thing I don't understand about that. Not to interrupt you, because that's not civil, but I'll do it anyway.
It's your show, man. Interrupt me.
But it's like 2003. Something happened in 2003 where people decided, where the culture decided, we're not going to have this conversation anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand. I mean, it was like when the moment people like got sick of being in Iraq. I don't know. And you know, there's a whole argument about the justice of that, but it was something around 2002, 2003, where people are just like, nah, we're not having conversations anymore. We're just going to call you a Nazi. We're just going to call you I mean, and don't get me wrong, like those have been underpinnings in the left-right debate for a long time.
Yeah.
But there was a watershed moment, right? In 2002, 2003, somewhere in there where the dialogue stopped happening.
Somebody Google, when did Twitter first start? I bet it's 2003. What do you think?
Yeah. MySpace was just happening in 2003. I don't think Facebook came out until 2009. No, 2006.
I think that would be a brilliant study, like an academic study, to see if there's a correlation between the loss of civil discourse and the creation of social media.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Well, they've already shown the results in social studies, like the signs of depression and anxiety and that stuff being like correlated to us wanting likes and hearts on all of our comments, and how it's changed brain chemistry and stuff like that. Like it's so messed up.
Yeah, that's very
well. I have to point out, like, I mean, there's something real to that. I had a snarky comment on the Chicago mayor's Twitter today, and it got 80+ likes.
Wow. Thank you, Evie. 2006. Evie says 2006 was Twitter. So Twitter not far off. Not far off. Maybe it was Facebook.
Yeah, who knows? But also, before we get on to the next topic, Neostar said his hero Riser Man was meant to emulate the classic manga and Silver Age comics, which I love. Silver Age comics.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read enough classic manga, which Marmaduke fan makes fun of me for whenever we talk, which isn't often enough because I could stand more ribbing like that. Also, I want to point out, Star Storyteller says the church didn't see the value in art, unfortunately, which was the truth.
That is so true.
But it wasn't just the church, right? It was something like there was a divorce between the populace and the arts community.
Mm-hmm.
And artists have always been living on the fringe, but throughout the Renaissance and actually the Dark Ages, which weren't really that dark,
right.
Arts were intended to serve the public. And sometime in the 20th century, and it was probably started in the 30s and really like hit its peak in the early 60s, late 50s, arts stopped serving the public and were intended to serve the elite.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
even in the Renaissance and in the medieval period, arts were paid for by the elite, but they were meant to serve the public.
Right.
And like that changed. And when that changed, when that divorce happened, you can also see it happening in film, where there became that divergence between what is good film, right? The critically acclaimed films and the
Right.
award films, and the films that make all the money.
Sure.
And so you will never see an MCU film on the Oscar list, even
No.
if they have the best costuming, the best makeup, and
Right.
also I think MCU is over. But beyond that, had a couple of good pictures in there, and they definitely could have qualified for Best Picture, and they never would have got it. Never would have got it because there weren't enough ABC, whatever's,
Right. Yeah. They didn't meet the qualifications.
So I don't think it was just the church. I think it was there was the divorce between society and culture that happened, and I think that the church got caught up into it because there's a whole thing about that. There's a whole thing.
Yeah, there absolutely is.
There's
and every time people refuse to pay an artist what they're worth, we're also undervaluing art.
That's also true.
That just drives me crazy as a guy who's
things that's really hard to pull off because speaking as an indie guy, like I can't I can't pull together what an artist is worth.
Sure.
So that's one thing. So
you want to tip on that?
Yes.
Okay. So I've had huge success with this, and I've been an art director since the late 90s. Is you find artists, they might not have exactly the style you need, but they're in the neighborhood. So, that stylistic neighborhood, but you go find a beginning artist who's in the neighborhood of the style that you need, and you give them a shot. You won't have to pay the top rates. You'll still get something stylistically that you're comfortable with, and you're going to help grow that artist into maturity, and you're going to give them a shot to get their name on something and gain popularity. I can't tell you, Reese, how many times I've done that. And those artists, and I'll even tell them, I actually did some work with a young lady out in New Mexico 3 years ago. And I told her, I said, in 2 years, I won't be able to afford you anymore. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, you just watch. I said, I'm going to help promote you. And, people are going to see your work. And in 2 years, I will literally not be able to afford your work anymore.
That is very true.
And sure enough, almost 2 years to the day, I tried to commission her and couldn't afford her. And she thanked me and she appreciated it. And I said, do you remember what I told you? And she said, yeah, I remember. And I said, well, now what you get to look forward to is in 10 years, you're going to be working for some massive company that, gives you what you're actually worth, And so she was super excited about that. But that's how you can start, is you can find a young artist who's in that stylistic neighborhood, go and kind of really, to use a Christian term, you go love on them. Right.
Yep.
And you give them a shot, and you give them some money, and you give them some validation. They might not be perfect, but you get to grow them as an art director, right? And help them mature. And typically that works really well. And you make really good friends in the process, which is not bad.
I actually have my eye on a beginning artist, and I already can't afford him.
Then he's not a beginning artist.
No, his stuff is, that's true. His stuff is really, it's I'll just tell you, because I've talked about it. I've got a project that I'm it's mothballed right now as I'm trying to get the money together for it. But Carl, he goes by Carl Tunes on Twitter, and he's got this awesome, it's like Astro Boy meets Popeye style. That's just like amazing. And he's really he's got a real polished character design element to it, and it's super perfect for a story that I've got.
Well, have you written the story?
Yeah.
And have you sent it to it?
Well, I've gotten he's I've got the outline for it, and I've gotten the first page commissioned by him. So,
because a lot of times that's worked for me as well, is if you write a story and you go, hey man, I really wrote this story for your art. It's just perfect. When you have time, or when you can afford a little lower rate, let me know. I want to pay you to do this. A lot of times artists will be so flattered, they'll be like, yeah, I'll give you 3 pages for free or whatever.
But
or discount you. Yeah, that was I'm a big fan of Robert Nix. I I've been kind of following his stuff for a long time, and he started doing. I started kind of hanging, like talking to him, going back and forth and talking about stuff, and he started doing some key promotional art for my series. And the more and more we chatted, we just kind of really hit it off. And I was like, I need you to do a few pages for my book. And he's been really instrumental in even helping me kind of just up my game, because like I'll just ask him, I'm like, how did you do that? And I mean, I'm on a different spectrum here, where I do draw and everything. And I think also what you guys are talking about is just networking. That's just like going out there and just talking to other people and creating those connections and opening those doors and helping each other out, supporting one another.
So for those of you guys in the chat who are huge fans of Carl's art, if you want to help that project happen, we do have a Patreon, Ideal Comics on Patreon, and you can make that project happen today. You can start making it happen today. Plus, you get copies of other comics that are working on them. So look at that.
We got to begin the music. The music swells. You can make this project happen today. Please donate.
We believe in projects like this.
All proceeds will go to our fellow management creators and editors and stunt people.
We don't.
Oh, Evie wants a link, so send her the link.
Okay, I can put that in the chat.
All right, I assumed Evie was a female. I'm sorry, I should have done that.
No, she is. She is.
Something you never know nowadays.
Well, something about the name seemed feminine to me. So.
Yeah, and her.
I just know it's a Pokemon.
So what?
It is. Eevee is a Pokemon. It stands for evolutionary.
Oh, okay. I know nothing.
I didn't know
about
that part.
Yeah, because the Eevee has the most number of different evolutionary forms.
Yeah.
My kid plays a Pokemon Go, so he talks.
He knows everything.
I play Pokemon as well, and I didn't know that.
Well, kudos to you, Dad, for knowing something about the Pokemon for your kid. That's awesome.
He's a really good kid. Both of my kids are actually really good, but my oldest is hardly a kid anymore. He's 19. He's a sophomore in college. He's moving. He's already announced he's moving out this summer. So it's like, I don't know what to do with that. If on the one hand, I've been looking forward to him moving out for so long, because here's the selfish truth. My wife and I, brought a present home from our honeymoon. We didn't know about it right away.
I got you.
So I've
had kids for a while, is what you're saying.
I've wanted to have my wife to myself for 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. I've had to share her for a long time, right. And I'm glad to have, because my kids, I love them, they're great, but part of me is like, any day now, it's just us. It's gonna be great, because she is just amazing. Yeah. Awesome. And I look forward to sharing her intermittently when they come back to visit. That's good. And
I was going to say, I'm like, never really gonna have her all the time.
And when they bring back other little ones, I already know. Like, when I retire, I want to be just covered in grandbabies. That's what I want for my retirement plan, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I hear you. That's a whole other show, by the way. Family, and big families. I've got 5 kids, so I know what you're talking about. So
5 kid club here.
Yeah, I just have the 2. So, but anyway, so I've been looking forward to it for a long time. But at the same time, like, my kids are awesome, so I'm like having to adjust to the idea that, like, well, I'm glad they're leaving, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, time flies by, man. It really does.
It makes sense. And one thing from the chat: no, Ebro, sharing is not for commies.
It's sharing is caring.
Share when you don't own anything, and the new socialist man is not an individual part of the collective, and therefore cannot own anything, so he can't share. Sharing is for capitalists.
Very true. You have to own something to share it.
You have to own something to share it. You have to own something to be charitable.
Well, speaking of being charitable, I got some stuff to give away.
Oh yeah, that's right. Hang on. I'm going to be selfish here first. There you go.
Stealing is for commies.
He's got it right. Stealing is for commies. That's exactly correct. Hang on. Patreon.com.
Yes.
/ideal_. Curses. _comics.
So Nicholas, can you see that link that I put in the private chat?
Oh yeah, if I open up the private chat, yeah, I can see it. How do I can't put anything in the chat though.
Yeah, I can't either. That's why I was
doing anything for me.
Right.
Or maybe because we're guests.
Can you see the link,
yeah,
Reese?
I can. I just have to. My thing just started being buggy again.
No.
Okay.
Spray it with red.
Hang on.
Yeah, no problem.
Radio silence.
Right, so I can see the chat. So if somebody's got a question, ask me in chat, and I'll answer it right quick. I have to say I love the informal feel of this podcast. I've been on all these super formal podcasts this week, and it's so refreshing just to hang out with a couple brothers. It's so nice.
Actually have conversations.
Yeah, and laugh and joke.
So when I started the show, I got to tell you why it's called Mattriarchy while I'm waiting. Copy link address. Oh, hey, there we go. Now it looks like it's acting like it's supposed to. But when I started the show, it wasn't my idea, actually. So there's a fellow, Matt McGibson, who I met on a different stream. And at the time, there were 3 Matts, and we were all hanging out in the chat talking about stuff. And McGibson says, we should form a Mattriarchy. And I was like, that's the most amazing thing ever. And so we chatted, and it was a really good time. And so a couple of months go by, and I reach out to Matt, and I see that he's a creative guy. I was following him. We followed each other on Twitter, and I'm like, dude, we need to do something creative together because I love your energy. Let's make something happen with this Mattriarchy name because it's hilarious. It's great. It's funny. And he's like, let's do a live stream show. And I said,
oh, what?
I was thinking like something because I knew he drew. So I was thinking something like, like a comic project or something.
Right.
But he was like, no, let's do a live stream show. Like, great. And so I was like, okay. So I figured out how to do it. And the inspiration I drew from the format was the old Tom Snyder show, the old interview shows like that, where it would be just, people sitting down and talking about stuff. And that's kind of the how I wanted to kind of go with it. So that's how we do. That's what we do.
Where are the other Matts? They're not here.
Well, the other Matt,
Did you lose them?
Well, the second Matt. Well, the other thing about it is we're all 10 years difference in age. So, I'm a Gen Xer. Vilar is a millennial, and McGibson is a Gen Z.
That'd have been a great show.
It would have been a great. I mean, we've actually had Vilar on before, but he didn't want to do a regular show. That was just something that he just didn't want to spend his life doing. And McGibson was still in college, so he was just like, I'm too stressed for a weekly show.
Gotcha. I understand that completely.
So I was just like, well, I have 30 people watching this a week. I guess I'll just keep doing it. And
hey, I'm going to share, if that's okay, I'm going to share something right quick. I'm going to share some previews of the Tennis Tales comic, and Reese was nice enough to put a link in the chat for you guys. That is a Gumroad link that will cost you nothing. So you can go get a free copy of Tennis Tales Troublemaker, and I'm going to give you a little preview now. So can you guys see what I'm sharing?
Yes. Let me feature it so it's easy to spot.
All right, awesome. Just let me know. I'm scrolling up. Are you featuring it, Reese?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay, awesome. All right. So I'm just going to kind of scroll up here a little bit and show some of the art. I'm not gonna show you everything because I don't want to spoil. It's a short comic, so I can't go too far. So
spoil us.
So,
I love the color work on that thing.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, Mingo is phenomenal. I'm so happy to be working with him. He's an amazing artist. That's all him. That's everything. He did all the lines, all the colors, the panel layout, everything. So,
oh man, come on, browser, don't be stupid right now.
So can I answer Evie's question?
Yes, go for it. I was actually gonna rotate to that one here.
Go for it.
Matt's a little tired. Not on his A game. Oh goodness, I'm tired too. I can't speak.
No, my browser was hanging up on me. So Evie's got a great question. How do you choose the medium for your work, i.e., cartoons, comics, etc.?
Oh, that is a really good question. So, like in the instance of Tenant's Tales, for instance, I mean, originally from the very, very get-go, I saw it as a graphic novel. So, very gritty, very stark, because that tone kind of underscores the story. Mm-hmm. And I guess really that's the answer, right? Is that you try to produce the work in the format where the story is most effectively delivered, right? So for a long time, for several years, I either couldn't afford to have a comic made, or just hadn't found the right artist, or had found some artists that worked well, but I kind of experienced what I call artist washout, which is where artists will start a project and they'll just kind of disappear or wash out. And so I did the only thing I could do, because I'm not a great artist myself. And so I just wrote novellas and short stories that involved Tennant and his world, because I wanted to grow the world. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you're limited by what you can do. I mean, literally like your skill set. But if you have any range of ideas or any range of skills that you can apply to a given project, then I would advise you to pick the style set that most effectively delivers your message. So,
and I think some of it, like certain stories are just a better fit. Mm-hmm. And I look at it when it comes to artistic styling, right? Mm-hmm. If I've got, like, for example, we talked about earlier my story, I've Been to Hell, right? And the reason that I went with the artists that we have for that is Rolf has got a kind of a if you make the sense of it, kind of a dirty Archie style to his stuff. And then my son Tolly, he has a very anime style, right? And so you put those two together, and I think it gives the perfect comic tone for what I want to do with the story, where it's just a little bit serious and it's a little bit funny, and I think it's gonna work in really well with that story. Sure. And so I've just started working on a different story that's more of a straightforward action story. And if it wasn't, I've got an artist, it's on the works. No, not going to talk about it a lot, but it's going to fit really well, I think, with that story. So you got to kind of, I think, find the vibe to hit whatever you're trying to get with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got some stories that I've written as screenplays, because I really feel like they need to be on the screen. There needs to be either a live action or maybe an animation. But, it just really depends on what's going to suit that story the best. I mean, I, for instance, I can't really see Tenant's Tales being a 3D animated show. It would have to be super, it would have to be super stylistic. Maybe if I could find something in like, for instance, I really like the Clone Wars, the style that they had for the Clone Wars.
Andy Tartakovsky, guy's genius.
Yeah, that style was really cool. Now, that style wouldn't work for Tenant's Tales necessarily, but something different like that, right?
Well, and I mean, not to go too close to the thing, but like the Hellboy animated features, right? Yeah. Those that were kind of in the movies,
but those were 2D, right? Those weren't 3D. Right?
Exactly.
And so I can definitely see Tenant's Tales being a 2D animated show, but 3D, it's really it's got to be the right style,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because I don't think that's one of the things that's really weird about it. Like, action in 3D animation never really looks right.
Yeah.
It depends on the animator.
I think it does depend on the animator, but
I think that's a big factor. But I mean, even, I don't know, just something about it. It just doesn't seem. And maybe it's because I grew up, Saturday morning cartoons, right?
Yeah.
G.I. Joe, the
Thundercats,
Star, all that kind of stuff.
Silverhawks, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we are about the same age.
Yeah. I think we probably lived across the street from each other, just didn't know it. So.
Did you ever live in Oklahoma?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because that's where I was when I was that age. I'm also was really glad to leave Oklahoma. I like Nebraska so much.
Awesome.
but yeah, it was one of those things where, man, I think a lot of that serious like hardcore action just looks way better 2D than 3D.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll agree with. I'm gonna butcher your name, but the Spider-Verse movie, Spider-Man, that had a really fluid animation and really good setup to its action scenes and its connecting the hits and everything. I think, going for children's cartoons, the action scenes are probably going to be lower budget tier in terms of animation, frame rate, and that stuff. But obviously, bigger budget movies are going to have a far better animation.
Yeah, and again, that movie had such a different style. It was one of these that it looks so different than anything else that's out there. That's kind of what I'm talking about with Tennis Tales. It would have to be something so different that it just kind of pops your eyes out when you see it. So
see, and that's the thing where, like, I can't even comment on because I had already soured on Marvel movies before Spider-Verse came out. So everyone's like, aren't you going to watch Spider-Verse? And I'm like, no, Infinity War sucked, and I don't want to spend any more money on that.
Well, if you get a chance, it's well worth a watch. So
it's a good story.
People keep telling me that, and I keep not believing them. But
well, first of all, it has nothing to do really with the MCU at all. It's totally unrelated.
And I get that.
Other than general, but visually, I really think you would love it, Reese. It's just one of the most jaw-dropping visual experiences you'll have. So
Hollywood had its chance. I'm sort of
I'm done. Indie everything.
Yeah. I'm just, I don't know, man. I mean, just like I actually did see Endgame because my kids really, really, really wanted to go.
Right.
And I was just like, I was so sour on it for months and months. And my kids were just like, but Dad, I was like, okay, fine. I'll take you because I love you, but no, I don't want to go.
All right. So here's what we'll do, Nicholas. We're going to guilt Reese into doing a live stream viewing of Spider-Verse. And
there we go.
I'll buy the movie so he doesn't have to pay anything. You just bring popcorn, Reese.
There we go. Actually, for something I've wanted to do for a long time was actually figure out a way to do kind of because Mike Hutchison, one of my regular guests, who used to be my editor on Fanzine many, many years ago, because I was a staff writer for Fanzine. If you don't know, that was a DC Comics fan magazine that was online exclusively from 2000. Well, I think it was 97 up to like 2003, 2004, somewhere there. And I was a staff writer for the last year. It was in publication.
Cool.
And Mike was my editor, and we've kept in touch. And he's a semi-regular guest.
Awesome.
And he's just like, we ought to do like a live viewing of a movie and comment on it like Mystery Science style.
Yeah, MSK 3000. Let's do it.
I was like, sounds fun.
Really
do this.
Yeah, we should do that.
Generate a lot of views.
It needs to be an old movie, though. It needs to be something that somebody doesn't care about seeing, because when you're talking over it, that drives some people crazy. So
that's true. So.
Matt, you got to title it like, we react to the new such and such. Those are really popular on YouTube. Like, just be like a reaction video.
Yeah,
like,
those are really, really crazy. Yeah. And you have like those people. One of the total side note, there's a pair of twins, and I can't remember, that react to like old songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these kids like grew up like just listening to modern hip hop and had never, like, till they were like 14, had never heard like Barry White and never heard like Queen. And so like watching them like discover like, 70s and 80s and 60s music is just like really interesting, because all of a sudden I find myself appreciating music I grew up with in ways that I didn't like.
In whole new ways.
Yeah. It's like, this is a lot better than, I liked it, but man, I really was just seeing like them like dig on those instrumental hits like Sting. It was like, it's really cool. It's fun. I can't remember the name of it, but there's some really, really fun. But yeah, Evie says, I find it interesting. You mentioned Spider-Verse is fluid since Miles is often, hang on, I can't read the whole thing.
Was often animated on twos, making him look a little choppier on purpose, not for the whole movie though. That's correct, Evie. I think that Nicholas was actually talking about the style of the movie being fluid.
Yeah.
Not Miles specifically. So
well, and one of the interesting aspects on that is if you ever watch the making of feature of Gangs of New York, they cut it the same way to make the fight scenes more dramatic. And if you go through and watch it, no punch ever connects. It cuts immediately before the punch connects and immediately after. And that was done intentionally to give it more punch to it.
Pop. Yeah, more pop.
There was
I'm working on a project right now where with one of my interns, and the beginning part of the animation will be animated on 2s or shot on 2s, but it will slowly transition to 4s to give the viewer this sense that we start out kind of in this rocky, unsafe world, but we finally transition to somewhere safe and peaceful. So,
wow.
Go ahead, Nicholas. I ran over you. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. It's your show, man. We're here to interview you.
It's not my show. It's not my.
I was just going to go off what you said there of in terms of like even action scenes. An editor I was talking to said that the best fight scenes you can show are the moments before the hit and then the moment after the hit. So like for artists out there, even writers, like when you're editing something or putting something together, no one cares about the actual hit. Everyone oohs and ahs after the hit when they see like that guy's face just get smashed in or like someone hits the wall. Like people love the anticipation, the setup, and then the aftermath.
And one thing that's true with like in terms of like comic work, the more you show like the before and afters routinely, then when you do have that moment at the climax, you actually show like the face getting smashed, it's more impactful.
That's right.
If every punch has the fingerprints in the cheek, then it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So if you save it for like, you have that, and then at those moments where you're like, the spittle's going there, then all of a sudden that means something. Spread that means something. Yeah.
So is the pun intended that it was more impactful at the end?
No. I hadn't even picked up on that.
I thought that was intentional too.
See, I'm a genius. I just don't even pay attention to
myself. And didn't know it. That's right. Hey, am I sharing again? Am I sharing?
No, I don't see anything on my end.
I think Reese has to grant me the superpower.
Yeah. I do.
All right, awesome. So I just wanted to, can everybody see this little guy right here, this poster?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Whoa, that's weird. It's going like for forever in the screen.
It's because it's on the back. It's in the background. Because you're sharing the whole screen, so it's also got us in there.
So another little goodie that I'm happy to give away on Reese's stream tonight is giving away 2 of these posters. It's an actual physical poster.
Oh, wow.
Measures 18 by 24. It's really high quality print. Very, very beautiful poster. And I'd love to give it to a couple of your viewers tonight. Reese, whomever you want, whatever means or method you would like to go about selecting those individuals is up to you. So
I'll tell you what we'll do is for anybody who messages me on Twitter or on Facebook, I am at, because on Facebook everybody finds me because I'm streaming to Facebook, so you know me already if you're watching on Facebook, or on Twitter, I am at MD Reese. And then go ahead, and if you message me the first 2 that I get, I will forward to Brandon, and then he will get a hold of you.
Yep. All I need is your mailing address, and in a few days, you'll have a beautiful Tenant's Tales poster arriving at your door.
Awesome.
How large are those?
They're 18 by 24 inches, so it's a full like a movie poster size. So have a spot on your wall because they're pretty nice.
Those are big.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't play around, man. What are you talking about?
You guys from the South, you guys don't skip on anything, man. You guys go all out.
The whole theme of the second hour was quality.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
And again, that link, to the Gumroad link, that's a free Tenant's Tales Troublemaker comic for anybody that wants it. So just go grab it. Let me know what you think. We're at Brainy Pixel on Twitter, and we're on Facebook and brainypixel.com. I'd love to hear what you guys and gals think of the comic. I totally did that to kind of introduce people to the world, to the character, and to hopefully begin a long and glorious relationship with this strange guy named Tennant. So
I love it. Well, I think I'm going to wrap the show, honestly.
Okay.
It's 9:30.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Okay. No issue.
I'll tell you honestly, I don't want to seem ingracious at all, but I ran late because I normally cut at 9, but I ran late because we got started so late, and man, things are just running. Hey, Tony Sizzle, how's it going, man? Tony's a good guy.
Tony Sizzle in the hizzle.
Tony, free is a good deal.
For Rizzle.
So, Tony actually did art on a story of mine that I haven't finished lettering yet, but it is going to be legit when it's done. So it's just a little 8-pager mini comic, but it's great stuff. So
awesome. Looking forward to seeing that.
Eventually, I don't know when I'm going to. I'm busy. I'm too busy. I have too many things going on right now. But Brandon, thanks so much for coming on. BrainyPixel.com is where you guys can check it out. Nick, you're getting ready to ship, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. Oh crap.
Yeah. Demon Hunter Raven, looking exciting stuff there. And thanks you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Guys out in the world, give these guys a follow. Check it out. You can check out if you scroll up the chat. There's a free comic up there. So yeah, go and get that. And of course, you can support Ideal Comics on Patreon, which has nothing to do with Brandon or Nick at all. It's all goes to it doesn't go to me actually. It goes to the company, but then we can use that to go, give other artists money is our goal. So
money's nice. You can buy stuff with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, idealcomics.net, my website. We have a store where you can buy electronic versions of our books. If you really, really want print versions, email me and we'll work it out. So,
cool.
If you guys want to keep up with Brainy Pixel, you can follow him on Twitter and Facebook with the same name, Brainy Pixel.
Brainy Pixel.
That's right.
Absolutely. So,
and we just scratched the surface tonight, Reese. So anytime you want to have me back on, man, I can talk for hours.
Absolutely.
So cool.
And you're coming on in December when they get the show set up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be here.
So
yeah, I'll have a little Advent themed product out then. So it's Cubekins, but it'll be done. So
sweet. That's awesome. Actually, that's really cool. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and cut it off here because I'm a slacker. And that's what we're going to do. So, you guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning in and keep reading comics.